Hey there. Well, I expected to be using a video toy tonight, but expect them to come back soon. I'm still not feeling all that chipper. Okay, I had a really special journal come through today, actually, and I usually try to share too, but I don't feel up to doing a live one right now. I'll just share this one with you. I'll let it speak for itself. Okay, it's from 9/12, the first and last of this day, and the Mayan day is 8 Ahau, which is sun, or Lord, or light. It's the last of the Mayan sun signs, and 8 has a power all its own, so it's a pretty special day. Alright, here we go. Come into heart with me right up front, or you might as well not even bother with this journal. It comes from there, so do you, but do you know that? Maybe you figured out that who you think you are, well, it isn't exactly a sham, but it isn't you either. Where are you on your personal journey into awakening? Do you know? Well, your heart does. So, let's take our journal journey from there. Let's start with your feelings, your attitude toward your life, toward this lifetime and all it entails. Do you love it, or do you hate it? Or maybe, like so many, you're simply soul weary with the unending challenges that seem to be sprouting up just everywhere. Well, take a moment now. Take your internal temperature on this topic. If you had to sum up your response to this life in one line, what would it be? Violins playing in the background, crickets chirping, angels singing. Even if you're so totally shy that you feel you can't be real with people, can't expose your deep inner self to anyone, well, you can at least reveal the truth to yourself. And that's what we're doing here. We're not talking any great revelations or transmissions from heaven here either. Just a good, honest assessment of your true feelings about things. It's time and past time that we all stop kidding the self. Do you love yourself? Oh, really? Then do you love truth? There is no finer gift you can give the self than just being real. Being real with you and about you. And you can do this too. Don't kid yourself. Your inner self knows a heck of a lot more than you do if you're walking around in the conscious mind, left brain style, as too many on earth do. Your inner or higher self knows simply all about this embodiment and all of your other lives too. It seems to me like our higher selves have made some kind of pact or another about not revealing too much to us until we find our way into heart. Now, I'm pretty sure that's not the case, just saying that's what it seems like. From what I see, when I'm in mind, I just don't have access to much that's really important. The deeper stuff about me. The head always seems full, but full of worthless info. All of it focused very much on 3D, on the things that are passing. Well, I want to go higher. How about you? I'm going to be one happy camper when this catches on more widely and people begin spending significant time within, instead of this constant focus on the outside world. It's not even really there, not as we see it, but we won't be let into the secrets around that until we find our way deep inside. Until then, that outer world will continue to appear very real. There'll be some answers about that if you stick with me and stay in your heart. Life in 3D is upside down and backwards, pretty much. I know many of us have sussed this out. And it's fun getting together and sharing the bits and pieces that are currently coming together for us. How we're seeing our way clear of the matrix, finally. It's enjoyable, really, and that enjoyment is what I'm writing about. Now, stay in heart. Just center your focus, your attention, in the middle of your chest, if you're not familiar with that, and bring forward your one-line summary of your attitude toward this life. What was your verdict? Sour or sweet? Miserable? Just barely acceptable? Or quite all right? You may put on a face for the world to see, we all do, but do recall you're just sharing with you here, so you can let your guard down and just be real. Anyway, that'll come naturally when we're in heart. Okay, now as you look at that summation, do you feel you have any power over it? Do you think you could change it? Your answer to this reveals much about whether you've accepted yourself as divine yet. If you have, then you'll be feeling both less intimidated by life and much more powerful, able to bring about change. We are creators. And the sooner we own that, the better it will go for us, since we are actually creating this life. No, not the conscious mind part of us. And that's not you, by the way. You're far greater than that. But until we change some of our old programmed beliefs, we won't be seeing the kind of things I talk about. In a little bit, I'm going to share with you a look through my eyes at the world. Now, it may be the same world we live in, but I assure you, the way I see it is far different than most. It's so different, even from my earlier beginnings in this life, that I feel as if I'm in another lifetime from the one I started out in here. First, though, let's look at what might be in the way of heart vision for you. In the spirit of being open and honest, yet also gentle with the self, have a look at how much responsibility you take for your life. Until we take it on, there's really no use having higher self reveal much to us, because we won't do anything with it. We can't. We're not yet in charge of our life. I'm celebrating this general awakening that's going on, partly because I didn't feel safe to share myself openly this way before. It's a pretty crushing atmosphere out there in society, or it was, or that's how it seemed. Now, it may not be perfect now, and it's not, but if we'll just look back to where we were a couple of decades ago, there's been marvelous movement. Look out higher frequencies. we're coming on in. Now I'm going to say that maybe the biggest thing between most of us and taking responsibility for our own life happens to be the blame game. Let's say you were abused or molested or maybe even abandoned early in life. Okay. Many of us were. But we didn't all respond the same way to it, did we? We all blame for a time, often even blaming the self. Little kids tend to do that. But we can move out of that. We can heal. The easiest way to do that, and to almost put the healing on autopilot, is, you guessed it, spend time in heart. Not actively doing or even trying to do anything, just being there and being still. This isn't a stillness that requires you to go off and be private and away from people in life. Rather, it's an inner stillness that can be present in the midst of chaos. It's not tied to 3D. You see, though we're all multidimensional, telepathic, psychic, and all the rest, most of us don't have, or don't think we have, much experience of that. We're used to having overall pretty negative thoughts about the self and what can be accomplished in our 3D life here. Life here isn't easy, for sure. What is easy is feeling beaten down by the happenings in our life. Feeling too small to do much of anything about it, but to just endure. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, first of all. That's kind of the mode I've been in for a little bit here. If that's been the way of things for you, it proves nothing except that you're part of the human race. We have certainly all been brought to our knees by things. And not just once, many times. So, hug yourself, okay? Cut your beautiful self loads of slack for what she has endured. You're still here and kicking, and that's a sight better than having checked out and moved on, huh? Not only is life hard here, but so is awakening. We thought it was going to be wonderful and it would solve all of our problems and answer every question, and we were just full of it, weren't we? Sometimes this awakening thing seems even harder than our challenging life. I know, I'm going through it too. And you're never totally awakened, since there's an infinity of opportunity left to explore, which gives infinite room for expansion. Oh, and you've got eternity to go about it in. Now, on the other side of that very coin is the reality that we are all fully awakened and that nothing ever really happened here. But this journal isn't about that. Still, I think it's good to touch bases, and often with the other side of whatever coin you're currently working on. Balance is the name of success, the way I see it. So, we're all familiar with feeling powerless, and that's fine. If you stay in heart, you won't ever self-criticize or condemn. There's simply no judgment to be found here. It's a great spot to hang out, even just for that. I'm calling us all to wrap arms of heart around our 3D self and just hold that one lovingly. Nurturing is called for, and for all of us. Hear me, you men, not just for some. You don't have to look or act broken on the outside either to require this nurturing. We all do. and fold yourself in a forgiveness that's so complete that it's divine. You have access to that. Heart's love is quite unconditional, so there's no need to perform to meet any standards at all. Okay, I saw some go to mind as they thought of the sacred texts and what they might call on us to do. Let that go now, too. Just for now. You can go back and look at that later. For right now, just stay in heart with me. Don't think. It won't help. These are some of the blocks that have been put between us and being willing to completely love the self. We've been made to feel that if we don't perform to some standard or other, we're not worthy. And it's usually not our own standard at all, someone else's, or some organization, church or something. Or we've been programmed to feel that we must be hard on the self, lest we let go and become self-indulgent, and then fail at our life's mission or purpose. Let that go too. Sweep it out if you like. It's not helping you. Let go of such things as soon as you see them. Doing this from heart makes it far easier since it's permeated with this unconditional love. There are no goals to meet, no hoops to jump through, no demands of any kind whatsoever. That's what unconditional means, you know. No conditions. Love. No matter what. And just because basically none of us have experienced it here in this life doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean we can't step into it. Slip right into it. We don't have to do it, invent it, step up to it, learn it, earn it, none of it. It's just there. It's in heart for us. The inner kingdom. So bask in that for a moment. Maybe even stop reading or push pause for a while. It's bound to be new to you. Take time to get into you. We mostly shut the self down, you know. This is the divine you that we contact in heart. It's simply perfect already. It's also you, but it may be a while before you can see that, so don't worry with it. No stress. For now, it's fine to put it at a little distance by calling it higher self or something. Making it seem to be a wee bit separate from you, that's fine. It still works. Hey, we do the best that we can in the now. That's all that's called for. In some other now, we'll be able to do 10 times more. So what? That's irrelevant. This now and this you. The habit of loving, of nurturing the self, I call on us all to step into that. We will each blossom like the most wonderful, the most fragrant, gorgeous rose that ever was, under such caring attention. We're all starved for this, whether we recognize it or not. The proof is in the pudding, so just give it to the self and then see what comes of it. At a minimum, you'll have more joy in your life. And we're used to looking to others to give us this. It's an ancient, aching hunger we have deep inside. Don't look to others anymore. That's to give your power away. Look to the self. I promised that I'd share some of what it's like to look out at life, at the world, through these eyes, so I'll get to that. Just be sure to stay in heart, though, so you can have the deeper experience that's available. I've no idea what will come through, but I do know there is no difference in the awesome potential of your heart and mine. Divine is divine. Now, first, like anyone awakening, I'm no Pollyanna. Life is tough. People can be cruel, and some seem even heartless. I know that about life. So, how can I stand it? How can I continue to see things in such a positive light? I've heard many of you wondering that. First, because I don't limit my gaze to the surface of things, and that's what that is. When we get trapped into a mindset that says, I'm small and life is large, I'm powerless and life is oh so powerful, then we can have a really miserable experience of life. And it will be real. Well, it will seem completely real. And that's because we're creating it like that. From this perspective, we don't know to take responsibility for being the creator of much of our own life. We simply don't know who we are, what we are. When I look out on things, well, it's with a heart of mercy. There is compassion for those who are so thoroughly lost and in ignorance that they're creating misery for us all, themselves included. I see clearly that right now at least, they don't know anything better, or they just wouldn't be doing that. Actually, I see the powers that were and all who work with them as being some of the most miserable, suffering beings on the planet, in spite of all of their wealth, riches, and privilege. Such behavior emanates from tremendous internal pain. There's nothing natural about it. They aren't evil, just ignorant, big time. I'd say the proof of that is in the reality that they're creating for their own experience. What goes around comes around, and that's one of the most basic of awakening facts. Yet, clearly, they don't know it yet. Something as fundamental as that. How would the world look different to you if your eyes were steeped in mercy and compassion? The divine attributes, not the human version. And what would have to change within you for something like that to happen? What's blocking your experience of divine love? If you stay in heart, you'll be shown, you'll be taught. Divine guidance is lovingly available 24/7. Even during a power outage, it's always there and always speaking to you, but only within. We all have the still small voice. Now, actually, that divine guidance is speaking to you without too, but it won't be translated for you unless your focus is within. When our focus is within, then we get the translation. It's the code breaker for every little thing that's happening in our life. And it doesn't come on us like that to where all of a sudden we understand every little thing. It's incremental, like most everything else here. Okay, something else that interferes with our enjoyment of life is the feeling that we have to help others sacrifice ourselves, maybe even rescue them from whatever ignorance we're perceiving in them. Now, do admit it, because we have all felt this way. It's how we were brought up. With the very best of intentions, we reach out to bless and benefit our fellow man and woman, generally without a very good outcome. This approach is usually rejected, and with good reason, but we don't yet see it that way. We don't understand. One of the things that totally enables me to love my brethren, to love everyone without condition, is that I know I'm only responsible for me. He and she are responsible for he and she, not for me. The religious doctrine or dogma that seems to force many to reach out to change others is a heavy load to bear. It's a cross. It's also unnatural. It's not only, and stay with me in heart, reject the whole thing later, but don't run away just yet. There's goodies for you here, okay? Stick to heart. It's also not truly loving, in spite of whatever good intentions we bring to it. Those intentions don't give us the right to push others around. To share, yes, but to be pushy, Again, that doesn't make all religion bad. Far from it. I'm just pointing out what I see as a flaw in the way some religions have been interpreted. To even bring torture, killing, and war in the name of God. Well, there is a God, our source, who is absolutely perfect, and who doesn't need nor want us murdering one another in her, his, or its name. As I look out through these eyes, but from heart vision, eyes that lay no burden on me to change or alter my brother in any way whatsoever, love is enabled by that. It's much easier to just love someone for who they are and to see into the heavy load they are bearing while doing their best. We've got to cut them some slack too. Hearts are all beautiful and perfect, my friends. We only have to look, but with eyes of heart. Mercy. If we will but give ourselves, handle ourselves with real mercy, capital M to denote that it's a divine attribute, then we'll be equipped. We will have it to give to others. There's another divine law that I've come across. It tells me to look closely at how I treat myself. It then tells me that it is simply not possible to treat anyone else any better than that. If I don't give it to self, then I don't have it to give to anyone else. Hearing all of this can be pretty tough. Are you embracing, tenderly embracing the self? Is that your intent? That would be nice. No doubt, many flaws in our attitudes, beliefs, and behavior have been pointed out here. Things that aren't easy to see and then to accept. We're expecting the self to take this bitter medicine, but we can at least deliver it kindly with respect. You are simply awesome. Not the outer you. Do you see it yet? Even any part of it? It's the truth, and it's there to be seen, but some shifting is required. in all of us, me included. Nothing and no one is perfect in 3D. Not meant to be. Don't bother to try. Give that up. The perfection lies elsewhere. As we move into that perfection, we move steadily up in frequency until one day we find we've actually transcended the whole lower vibrational realm of 3D. It just can't hold us anymore. This perfection that we are already, yes, already, is held in our own higher dimensional being. Very little of who we really are has been poured into this hologram or computer simulation or whatever it is here. It doesn't matter what it is either, so let that go. Let things just be. It already is what it is. Let's agree to let things simply be what they are, without reaching out and trying to change or perfect them. Is it a deal? No more resistance to life. Take it by stages. Many of us are terrorized by how vastly difficult things are on Earth at this time. The natural tendency is to want to run away, to refuse to see and admit that we willingly set this up for ourselves pre-birth. No one held a shotgun to your head and forced you into your mother's womb. No such thing. You took that leap and joyously. It doesn't work on force yet, until we get rid of those kind of ideas that we're here against our will, that everything is terrible, that we don't even belong here, etc., etc., we will continue to suffer. We'll suffer without recognizing our own hand in creating the pain of it. Our beliefs are what blind us and bind us in our narrow, linear vision of it all. No one can fix that for us either. No one but the self. If you use your free will to maintain such a setup in your consciousness, no one will come along and suddenly fix that for you. It's time to own your free will, to take responsibility for how we're using it. Until we do that, we'll remain in the prison of our own making. Meanwhile, likely blaming those around us for our pain. Stay in heart. Many of us have taken such ideas and attitudes to the level of blaming God for not fixing things, or for letting them get into this terrible situation in the first place. Perhaps you're one of these? Hey, I know I was, but I hid it from myself very well for many years. I had myself so convinced that I loved God and that God only deserved love from us that I wasn't able to see the truth about me. My beliefs got in the way. I was good and angry at God. And oh, what an unwelcome shock it was when I was finally able to see into what was going on. It was horrible. I saw how afraid I was of displeasing God. Now, this is back where I still thought the God of the Bible was the true God, source or prime creator. Dropping that belief, well, it may have been the hardest one to release, truly. It was simply awful for a while. The love of God was still deeply in every fiber of my being, but I had to pull it back from that being. Okay, It was simply awful for a while. Now, look at that sentence. It was simply awful for a while. Do you see the flaw in it? I do. Instead, the truth is that it felt simply awful for a while. When we're in mind, we're identified with the 3D avatar, the body-mind thing, and our limited vision in that state causes us to make such broad pronouncements about what it was or what it is. Not so, limited vision. Anyway, we all have those sorts of beliefs lurking about there in the subconscious, where they're not easily brought out into the light and seen or examined. We can be on the watch for them, though, just by watching our use of the language and being in heart, where our guidance abides. I had no real love for the self back then, and that made it threatening to see such things. I lived in fear, as we all do, to a far greater extent than I recognized. I didn't think of myself as fearful at all. Once we give up the idea that we know so much, things begin to improve. Fear makes us stiff and brittle, fearful of change and fearful of owning up, of being responsible for much of anything. We're too angry. It's much easier to blame things on God or the Pope or the President or whatever and sit around and wait for rescue or Armageddon or whatever our belief may be. That's how we're absolving the self of responsibility for basically much of anything. When I look out at life through the front window or indirectly through videos online, I am basically in awe, poised and aware that things are much greater than I yet see, than I yet remember. Because deep inside, we all know this stuff. In heart and higher self, we know basically everything. Come on, we're source beams, direct emanations from source, from God. We just know, only it's no eternal knowing, and it's no external knowing, not a mind thing. And it's largely shielded from our awareness while we're in form, in body here. When you know this, or when you take it on as a belief on your way to knowing it, then you come from strength. There's a tremendous relaxation that can go on once you recognize that your knowing, it's an inner thing. You can let go and trust Source to reveal things to you at the perfect time and not worry about your seeming ignorance. Now, when you look out at life, all or most of the anxiety is removed. Your eyes are different. When you're coming from knowledge of, awareness of your deep interior knowing of it all, with your awareness that the mind knows basically nothing, for most of what it thinks it knows is false, well, that creates a radically different vision of life. Now you're relaxed. There is room in you, in your openness, to be surprised by the magnificence hidden within all of life. I'm kidding you. Even in the bugs. Everything. Now, actually, it's not at all hidden. We've just hidden it from the self by our choice of attitudes and beliefs. This magnificence is shining, simply radiating for all to see. All who have heart vision, at least. Do remember, my friends, the old truism that beauty is very much in the eye of the beholder. Do ponder on that. It's meant to take you deep into heart, if you'll but let it. We haven't been giving life permission to just be what it is. Instead, we've been projecting all of our unrest, our discontent, our fears and suspicions all over everything we look at. When we reach the point where we are finally able to see like this, we've hit some home truths. It's often at this point, oh, it's so very special, that we recognize that we are indeed projecting our own internal unrest out upon life. Life isn't that way. We are. Who is it? Wayne Dyer says, you don't get what you want. You get what you are. And you can change it. We have only been seeing the self, but without knowing that. Now I know this is both shocking and strange. We've had our finger of blame pointed every which way for so long, for so many embodiments, that it's become quite a habit. We even pointed at the self a good bit. Until that will stop, we're not equipped with our native heart vision. Certain things have to change first. Yet, we're more than able to make those changes. It starts by setting our intent and then doing a lot of self-observation. You are the all. Did you know that? Or did you perhaps think it just a comforting fiction or maybe a metaphor? No, you are the all. You are at least one with that. Although that's not quite good enough, because that brings separation into it, a you and a that. You really are the all. Once you cross this threshold of being able to see your own projection at work, you're well on the way to experiencing more and more of this oneness that some say is illusory. Well, for them maybe, and for now, but not for real. I'm going to attach a simple and short video, well, the link to it, from Guideposts, one of their Mysterious Ways series. For years, during some of the darkest times of this life, I cherished my subscription to that little magazine. It saddens me to hear that they're accepting ads these days, but in today's economy, I have to say I'd much rather they did that than fold up and quit. Anyway, here's my point about the Guideposts video. It made me cry, and not with sadness. Now, that is not precisely my point, but I share it with you because it springs from the heart's oneness with all of life. Someone else's experiences somehow, in ways that mine doesn't understand, become yours. Their joys are your joy. Their upliftment passed on to you, too. This is evidence or fruit of that oneness you may have rejected or at least resisted up until now. Some people call it woo-woo. It's not. When we can see our own projection of our interior onto the exterior world, then we're really getting somewhere. Then we're seeing just how it is that what appeared to be external to us, the work of others, is actually our very own self. Those problems we thought were outside and no concern of ours, well, we see through that now. We realize that the contrary is true, that life is very backward here in 3D. That is us. I'm going to pause here. Some of you are in mind, and you're embracing the whole world, and you're looking at the starving people in Nigeria and all of the injustice everywhere and having a hard time with that. That is not only you, and that is not only now. We've got to pull our focus in. Let it be your direct experience of 3D. Leave the rest of it alone. Just ignore it for now. You don't think you're going to understand the whole thing 100% all at once, do you? From micro to macro. Okay? Start small. Just stick with what you see and experience right around yourself. That works. So now, when we see or hear the story of someone's experience and how that changed their life or moved them deeply, we too are moved. We can't help but be touched by all happenings when we're in heart, even though the mind just doesn't get it yet, and it may not ever. Well, that just doesn't matter, for it doesn't prevent our actual experience of the oneness of all life. Now, please, don't be intimidated in any way by what's in this journal. Don't feel too small or minimized or incapable or any such thing. That's just mind. And you are divine, my friends, but it's got to be claimed. It takes reminding the self, or the mind, again and again. And this is excellent use of your free will to your own divine nature. All that goes with it won't follow too far behind this heart vision I'm speaking of. Now, this is one of those rare journals whose name came before the writing. So, as I notice that title before I close here, I'll share a few words on gratitude. When I look at life, at anything beautiful at all, and to me, most everything is beautiful, my heart shines with an intense gratitude, capital G. Frequently, there are tears from a heart overfull of the divine, so that it just had to overflow somewhere. And you see, that was my experience of the Guideposts magazine. I couldn't sit down, when I first started getting it, I could sit down and read straight through it. It's a small little thing. But the more I got into heart, I would have to savor each story. It got to where I'd get halfway through. I couldn't even get through one story without being so deeply moved that I just had to pause. I recommend those pauses. They too are divine. It is my experience of heart vision that when we see things no longer through the filter of mind, that they are all intensely beautiful, even hitting your thumb with a hammer. Keep out of mind. It's mind that says that's crazy. Mind just doesn't know. We couldn't function if we went around in grateful tears all the time. So to function appropriately, some of that is covered up, but not all, and not for long. All it takes is to go into heart and just look at life to see its magnificence and to weep. I recommend tears. They're good for the soul. Tears of laughter, tears of sorrow, tears of joy, tears of pain. Life is so magnificent that the chemical composition of our tears is distinctly different depending on what inspired them. There's no end to the magnificence that can be discovered about life if you're just open. Things have a beauty that the mind cannot see, for it's not linear, nor is it restricted to 3D. Heart vision sees more, sees deeper into things. Heart eyes show me how all of life is sentient, is conscious, from the plants to the birds and animals to the water, the rocks, the air, just everything. It's all alive, just like me. And furthermore, it can commune with me and I with it. And some of you notice that if we take that just one step farther and remove the separation that's there, it's alive just like me because it is me. Its sentience is my sentience. You can go pretty deep down this rabbit hole. Life becomes truly an adventure this way. Everyone's heart is more than able to lead them into heart vision. That's how I got here after all. And here I am sharing it with the world. Not everyone will be able to see this, nor even care about it, and that's just fine. Remember, all that matters is you. Can you see into it? Can you allow it to at least be possible? That's the first step, and it's not so very hard. This is mostly all about dropping resistance to life. Can you see it that way? Once we do that, well, life just gets more amazing by the day, or at least by the week, since it may take a little time to soften up and loosen those old beliefs so you can kick them out of the way. Give yourself this freedom, my friends, to allow the possible to just be possible. To know that simply anything is possible. Don't limit yourself. You'll be doing the self a very big favor. You'll see. You'll also see how much of a true creator you have been of that life you are living there where you are. You invented it. Wrap your arms around that. You'll not only be ready to take responsibility for that, you'll even be eager to do so, for you'll see in it your release from so much unpleasantness. There's no need to suffer, my dear. Love yourself enough to gently come back into alignment with what you find there deep within. Let not another word of self-criticism cross your lips, or even your mind. Let that be your intent. When it arises, just look the other way. Refuse to indulge in or to believe in it. It's a lie. Know this. It's a lie. One that you can see through now. So, rejoice in that. When the self-criticism comes up, rejoice that you can just look away, that you can know it's not so, that you don't have to be beat up anymore. Do you see? let the gratitude shine like a sun right there where you are. Bask in that. Luxuriate in it. Let every negative thing that comes up now be for joy. For the joy of your new level of awareness, of awakening to what's under that. Nothing can control you if you choose not to allow it. Take your life back, little by little, just this way. Turn everything negative that crosses your threshold upside down, inside out. Do it right away. Refuse to see things in the old, linear, literal way. It's not real. It's not true. Let there be no more resisting life, resisting all that it brings your way. Choose to take the driver's seat away from the mind that's been misled. Give it to heart and see what a difference that makes. Namaste. That's what it seems like. From what I see, when I'm in mind, I just don't have access to much that's really important. The deeper stuff about me. The head always seems full, but full of worthless info. All of it focused very much on 3D, on the things that are passing. Well, I want to go higher. How about you? I'm going to be one happy camper when this catches on more widely and people begin spending significant time within, instead of this constant focus on the outside world. It's not even really there, not as we see it, but we won't be let into the secrets around that until we find our way deep inside. Until then, that outer world will continue to appear very real. There'll be some answers about that if you stick with me and stay in your heart. Life in 3D is upside down and backwards pretty much. I know many of us have sussed this out, and it's fun getting together and sharing the bits and pieces that are currently coming together for us. How we're seeing our way clear of the matrix, finally. It's enjoyable, really, and that enjoyment is what I'm writing about. Now, stay in heart. Just center your focus, your attention, in the middle of your chest, if you're not familiar with that, and bring forward your one-line summary of your attitude toward this life. What was your verdict? Sour or sweet? Miserable? Just barely acceptable, or quite all right? You may put on a face for the world to see, we all do, but do recall you're just sharing with you here, so you can let your guard down and just be real. Anyway, that'll come naturally when we're in heart. Okay, now as you look at that summation, do you feel you have any power over it? Do you think you could change it? Your answer to this reveals much about whether you've accepted yourself as divine yet. If you have, then you'll be feeling both less intimidated by life and much more powerful, able to bring about change. We are creators, and the Hey there. Well, I expected to be using a video toy tonight, but expect them to come back soon. I'm still not feeling all that chipper. Okay. I had a really special journal come through today, actually, and I usually try to share too, but I don't feel up to doing a live one right now. I'll just share this one with you. I'll let it speak for itself. Okay, it's from 9/12, the first and last of this day, and the Mayan day is 8 Ahau, which is sun or Lord or light. It's the last of the Mayan sun signs, and 8 has a power all its own, so it's a pretty special day. All right, here we go. Come into heart with me right up front, or you might as well not even bother with this journal. It comes from there, so do you, but do you know that? Maybe you figured out that who you think you are, well, it isn't exactly a sham, but it isn't you either. Where are you on your personal journey into awakening? Do you know? Well, your heart does. So, let's take our journal journey from there. Let's start with your feelings, your attitude toward your life, toward this lifetime and all it entails. Do you love it or do you hate it? Or maybe, like so many, you're simply soul weary with the unending challenges that seem to be sprouting up just everywhere. Well, take a moment now. Take your internal temperature on this topic. If you had to sum up your response to this life in one line, what would it be? Violins playing in the background, crickets chirping, angels singing. Even if you're so totally shy that you feel you can't be real with people, can't expose your deep inner self to anyone, well, you can at least reveal the truth to yourself. And that's what we're doing here. We're not talking any great revelations or transmissions from heaven here either. Just a good, honest assessment of your true feelings about things. It's time and past time that we all stop kidding the self. Do you love yourself? Oh, really? Then do you love truth? There is no finer gift you can give the self than just being real. Being real with you and about you. And you can do this too. Don't kid yourself. Your inner self knows a heck of a lot more than you do if you're walking around in the conscious mind, left brain style, as too many on earth do. Your inner or higher self knows simply all about this embodiment and all of your other lives too. It seems to me like our higher selves have made some kind of pact or another about not revealing too much to us until we find our way into heart. Now, I'm pretty sure that's not the case. Just say